Hello everyone, in this video I will teach you how to play Pantheon to the point that you will be able to carry almost every game. I will try to make it as short as possible, but before I begin I would like to point out a few things. First, I am assuming you know what Pantheon's abilities do, but if you don't I will leave a link in the description. I also recommend you know his scalings and level 1 base damage for his abilities. Second, I will teach you the things that are more or less closely related with Pantheon, so general League of Legends knowledge stuff won't be included. So remember, even if you master everything I will show you in this video, you still won't climb fast if you don't know other champion abilities, when to take what objectives, warding, how to control the creep wave, and so on. Lastly, the footage is part of a game, and what I am saying has nothing to do with the footage. The tips are useful in all elos, but some statements and advice might be useful for low elo only. So let us begin. What is Pantheon? Pantheon is a early game AD caster fighter assassin type who can go in the jungle, mid lane, and top lane. In my opinion, he is by far stronger top, so this is the lane this guide will be focused on. Pantheon is a insane lane bully who has the upper hand in almost every matchup. He is so strong early that enemies usually will rush armor even if they are not a tank. He is a high risk, high reward champion who can snowball out of control and take over games. So what does Pantheon offer for the team? Well, in this current meta, tank top laners are more effective because of their strengths in team fights, and many of whom are also strong laners. But if your support or jungler is a tank, then there is no problem of picking Pantheon top. If you play correctly, you will almost always win lane, and with the way his kit is built, especially the ulti, you can easily feed the rest of your team and end the game before 30 minutes. In low elo, games last longer, but even if you have degenerates in your team, you can feed them and they will start doing stuff as well as demoralize the enemy. So as you see, you don't have to solo carry, but that can definitely be done. The biggest reason one might pick Pantheon is due to the fact that he can demolish squishy top laners, especially ones like Teemo and Fiora. In other words, he counters many champions and does his job so well that he can shut them down for almost all of the game. To wrap it up, he has great snowball potential, easy last hitting. He's a strong lane bully. He's got a targeted stun, long range ulti, great for snowballing and helping your team out, and high base damages. With all this good stuff, he must have a weakness. Well, it's his very poor late game. Below average wave clear, rather high mana costs, no escape, and his reliance on snowballing. Now let's get a bit more technical. For his summoner spells, I always take flash, and I really like teleport, because you can easily use your ulti whenever it's off cooldown to get kills and objectives, and then quickly return to your lane or get a double kill bot lane, in which case the game is already over. You're fed and unstoppable. Ignite is also an option to help start a snowball, but it only helps a little in lane. Even though it's easier to get first blood, I don't recommend Ignite on him in lower elo, but in higher elo, where players know how to play against Pantheon, Ignite helps a lot. So if you play him well in lower elo, I don't think it's worth taking Ignite, because you will get way more kills from roaming than from your laner. And in the mid game, you won't shot everyone, so they won't be running away with a slither of health often anyway. In some matchups, it's better to take Ignite though. Now for the masteries. Of course you can change them how you like, but I play with 18 points in cunning and 12 points in ferocity. Putting 5 points in savagery, then a point in assassin, then 5 points in merciless, then a point in dangerous game, then 5 points in precision, and finally I take Thunderlord's degree. In the ferocity tree I take 5 points in sorcery, then a point in double-edged sword, then 5 points in natural talent, then a point in oppressor. This mastery combination gives insane early game kill potential, and your easily procs Thunderlords, making your burst very strong. I would almost always take these masteries, except if you are playing in higher elo and your opponent is a tank, then you can consider taking Deathfire Touch, because the enemy will know how to play against you and will play safe early, so it'll be harder to get kills. Once you get a few early items, your poke will be great, and you can easily poke him out of lane when uh, whereas Thunder Lords would only help in all-ins. In higher elo, the enemy won't simply walk in your E, so you can proc Thunder Lords easily. Now for the runes. I would take 9 Seal of Armor runes, 3 quintessences of attack damage, 9 marks of attack damage, but you can take 1 mark of critical strike chance if you wish, so you can get that lucky 1 in 100 chance and crit the enemy early, probably resulting in a kill. And for the glyphs, you can take scaling magic resist glyphs. But if you're against an AD opponent, you can take scaling cooldown reduction glyphs, or even flat cooldown reduction. But try not to get them over 10%, then you'll go over the cooldown reduction cap. You can also take magic resist and scaling magic resist in this leftover slots. And for the seals, you can also take scaling health if you're against a threatening AP opponent. One thing that you shouldn't change is the quintessences and marks. You'll feel the effect, and these runes make a huge difference. Runes count as bonus AD, and Pantheon spears have a 65 base damage, what is already pretty high, with 140% bonus AD scaling. So at level 1, your spears will do 86 damage. And your E has a total base damage of 80 against enemy champions with a 300% AD scaling. So at level 1, with these damage runes, your E does a total of 125 damage, and it is really easy to get the full channel of it. On Pantheon, all 3 abilities can be a reliable start option. W if your team is being invaded or you're invading. E for some early cheese strats and need that burst, but generally you want to start with Q. For your second ability, it's situational. Taking E second will make you do more damage and allows you to easily last hit with its passive. But you can take W second to have a better trading potential because it refreshes your passive, as well as you can punish an enemy if he mispositions and drew minion aggro. Then you can stun him for a second in your minion wave, making the enemy take a lot of damage. On Pantheon, you always max your ultimate, then Q, then E, and then your W. For itemization, I almost always start with the corrupting potion. You might think the longsword is better with this great bonus AD scaling Pantheon has, but the corrupting potion allows you to spam your spears way more, and you'll rarely run out of mana in lane. Also, you have some sustain, so you can keep up with all the grasp of undying users. In some matchups, longsword is still a good pick if you know you can get first blood around level 3 or a bit later, then back, and then you can get the potion. As your first item, you want to rush Yomu's Ghostblade, but if you're against a AP opponent that is a big problem for you, you can rush the Hex Drinker. Building Yomu's Ghostblade, you want to start with a serrated dirk. After Yomu's, you want to build Black Cleaver, getting the Warhammer first. When you think it's necessary and you have the gold, you can get tier 1 boots somewhere in between. And if you have already won your lane early, you can consider upgrading your boots early so you can roll. I almost always get Swifties, but Ninja Tabby and Merc Treads are also a viable pick. You won't need the cooldown reduction boots with this build. After these items, you can start building Maw of Malmortius. If the enemy team has a threatening AP champion, or not, you can finish Black Cleaver, or if you've rushed Malmortius first. If there isn't a threatening AP opponent, you can build Sunfire Cape, or if they have a lot of crit, you can get Randuin's Omen. Finally, you can build another defensive item like Dead Man's Plate or Banshee's Veil. But if you are really fed and you don't need more resistances, you can get Death's Dance that works really well on Pantheon. I don't recommend you build Ravenous Hydra on Pantheon unless your team seriously lacks wave clear, but it is still a viable option to quickly push your lane and ulti someone else. But other than this, you'll lose control of the minion wave and you won't be able to bully your opponent as well as before. Warmogs, Guardian's Angel, Zizira Portal, Thornmail, Lord Dominic's Regards, and Duskblade are all viable options as well. I like to build 2 defensive items and Death's Dance if I'm really fed, or 3 defensive items instead, but going full damage is not strong. If you have any questions about the items, please leave a comment and I will answer. Finally, how to play Pantheon. Well, when you spawn, you want to go in your jungle and watch out for enemies, and then leash for a jungler, if needed. When you come to lane, instantly start throwing spears, and keep doing so every time they're off cooldown, but make sure to not chase him in his minions. Uh, you can also auto attack him as when he goes for his minions. And with your passive, he won't be able to trade back, but make sure to drop minion aggro after this. Most importantly, keep attacking minions in between to get level 2 first. If you hit level 2 and he is still level 1, see how much health he has. If he's low and playing quite safe, you can take W second and maybe even get first blood. If he's melee and still strong, you can take E to last hit better and make small all-ins when he comes to CS. If he is letting the wave push, then push it in and poke him under turret. But then only last hit, as for you want the wave to slow push back to you. Make sure to ward around 3 minutes. That's when junglers may gank you. Many people tend to camp your lane to shut you down, so be careful. When you hit level 3, this is the time you will get first blood a lot. Go for a full combo if he has little less than half hit point. If he's a melee and isn't under his tower, when he comes to CS, you can start auto attacking and chasing him while throwing spears. Then W, then E. If he is still alive, no problem. Keep chasing and throw that last spear on him, but don't dive yet. You can poke the enemy under their tower very well with your spears. One thing to watch out for is if they have hard CC, they can stop your E channel. So wait till they use their hard CC before using your E. Every time he backs or dies, you want to push out the wave as long as you know the jungler can't kill you, and then you can back. Until level 6, you want to try to freeze the wave in front of your tower to zone them completely. Once you hit level 6, be careful, as for the enemy has an ultimate that can help them in a duel, whereas yours can't. You want to tell your mid laner to let them push so you can ulti, then you want to push out your wave and ulti mid. Every time you back and your ultimate is up, tell bot or mid to let the enemy push out and go bot and ulti. Then if needed, TP back to lane. In other words, you want to ult as much as possible and roam as much as possible, even if you lost lane. When laning though, you never want to use abilities on minions unless you will miss some if you don't. Now when ulting the enemy doesn't have to be far pushed out. They don't even need to be in the middle. You want to ult behind them, but so that they are still inside the damage range, and make sure you won't land in their tower range. While ulting, make sure your teammates can follow up. Ping that you are coming so your allies know when to go in. If the enemy is pushed out and there is no ally and you can take them with your ulti, then you can ult right on top of them. Then Yomu's active and Swifties will make sure they will never get away. When you get your first item, there are a few champions that can deal with Pantheon. So when you roam, you will literally one-shot them, thus making your mid-game strong as well. After you get a kill, take a turret if possible, and with your allies, take objectives such as Rift Herald or Dragon. If you don't focus objectives after every big play, you won't win quickly, and the enemy will outscale you. So to sum it up, early game you want to bully your lane opponent and control the minion wave. Mid game and late early game you want to roam a lot with your ultimate, but what should you do if you haven't won yet and late game has come or the enemy groups early? Well, you want to ward the map, especially the objectives, so you can potentially find some pigs. Pantheon's pick potential is great, but watch out later in the game. Enemies like Jax can deal with you. Pantheon's split push is pretty bad, so don't do this, except if you can communicate with your team well. You can push out a wave, then choose when to engage with your ultimate. That's another thing I like about Pantheon. You don't have to rely on your team's front line to engage. You can choose when you think it's possible. You want to ult on a little behind the enemy's team and ping. Your team will almost always follow up, and when they go in, the enemy's backline will start falling back, and your ultimate should land on them, and the slow combined with your actives will make sure you get on top of them, and the ulti alone will chunk squishies. One thing to note is that you should make sure that your team can follow up. Otherwise, the enemy will instantly CC you and you will die. Try to always use your ultimate in team fights. Don't just run in ever when they engage on your team, because your ultimate has a long range. You want to stick far behind your team, ready to fight so you can't be engaged upon. Sometimes, of course, you have to frontline. For example, when you're defending a tower. Now, when you have landed in with your ultimate, you want to run right up to the enemy's ADC or APC and unload your kit. But if they have an escape like Ezreal, try to get out, um, try to bait out his escape and then W on him, unless you can kill him outright by instantly stunning him. Sometimes the enemy's tanks were not engaged upon by your team and can peel for their carries. In this case, you want to back out a bit and look for opportunities. You still want to be spamming spears and using your E, but save your W. Also, be careful when using your E so the enemies don't cancel it with hard CC. If you have a fed or strong ADC, you can also peel for them with your stun. You will get the hang of all this fighting stuff, but remember, never jump in the enemy's team first. Now for some tips and tricks as well as how to properly help out a gank or avoid one, and how to dive the enemy under their tower. You always want to ward the river and the tribush. If you don't have a ward placed, play a little safer. If you're against Shaco, Wukong, Hecarim, and so on, you want to deep ward. When you are being ganked because you are caught and weren't warding, then depending on the situation, you can try to run in the bush and unload your combo on the target with lower hit point and maybe even 1v2. Or you can try to run away if you think it can work by running in the bushes, and as a jungler comes up, you can jump on him and then run towards your tower. Sometimes it's better to just run for your turret, and sometimes you just have to flash. Now when your ally is ganking, you want to go on the enemies without using your W, unless the enemy has already spotted your jungler and is running. Usually you have enough early damage to quickly kill him with your jungler, even when they flash. If the enemy has enough damage to kill you or get you really low, you don't want to go in first, but wait a bit till your jungler comes in. When ganking other lanes without your ultimate, it all depends on who has more CC. If your ally has more crowd control, he has to go in first. If you have more, then you have to go in. Unless you know his bush is unwarded for sure, you don't want to sit in it. You want to go straight for the enemy. Your ally should see you coming, but still ping. Now a quick and interesting trick that works almost always against noobs. It takes 8 seconds for someone to back and 3.5 seconds for your ultimate to land. So if you count 3 to 4 seconds from the start of their back and then ult right on top, most noobs still think they will manage to recall in time, but end up dying. Be careful though, if they have hard CC, they will step aside and CC you under their turret. Now for diving, you can take a total of 3 turret shots without taking damage, but usually only 2 because the enemy might attack you back and proc your passive. When you dive, you want to have your passive up, then once it's down, you want to W on them, readying another passive and unloading all your spells on him, and auto-attacking as well, preparing another passive. Sometimes the enemy will still stay and you can just W right on them, unload your combo and kill them, so you won't need to do this fancy work. Be careful when diving enemies with a lot of crowd control, and never dive Rammus and Shen. When it comes to diving, it's mostly just getting the feel for this champion. You can use this passive to take a single turret shot as well, and quickly raiding another one, making your under tower poke really devastating. Another thing worth remembering is you can use your ultimate to escape as well as dodge something like a Karthus ultimate, because when you fly up in your ultimate, you become untargetable. Also, don't be afraid to use your ultimate to get back to lane. If you're fed, you can also ward the enemy's jungle and kill their jungler when he comes to clear a camp. But while doing this, pay attention to the map so you don't get collapsed on by the rest of the laners. Now a bit about the matchups. I find that there is no top lane champion that counters Pantheon by being able to win trades and stuff. His counters are champions that don't let him snowball, Some matchups like Darius are not too hard either, but are harder than someone like a Jax. I would say Pantheon wrecks all squishy top laners, but if the top laner is ranged, you might have a harder time bullying them early, but once you get a big item, you will deal with them easily. Harder matchups are tanks like Malphite and Shen. It's not that they're stronger in lane, it's the fact that they can deal with your poke and all your skills and set up ganks very well. Especially Malphite with his ultimate. He can take you undeterred with a jungler even. Later in the game you don't want to 1v1 tanks because the fights tend to last longer and someone can come help them as well as they can 1v1 you sometimes. Stacking armor counters Pantheon. If you keep a careful eye on the map and ward, you won't have trouble with tanks during the laning phase. You can also cancel their teleport ganks with your W. If you're having difficulties with the matchup, wait for a jungler to gank. Pantheon only needs one kill to snowball out of control. For matchups, starting items and masteries don't really change a lot. I also talked about them previously, but against something like a Swain or Vladimir, you want to take Ignite to reduce their healing. That's all for now. Thank you for watching this top lane Pantheon guide. Please leave a like, comment, and tell me about your games and how you like to build Pantheon. If you have any questions, please ask me and I will definitely answer. One last piece of advice. Play Pantheon for a few games to get the feel of his damage. Only then will you start to carry.